Welcome back to another episode of Criminal Justice Corner. I am your host, Dr. Jennifer Matthews. Here at Criminal Justice Corner, we give you the real details surrounding the case, and just in case you find yourself in the same situation, we give you actionable advice so you can potentially get yourself out. Today, I have with me a very special guest, Dr. Irene Abrons. Dr. Irene, can you give us a little bit backstory about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Jennifer. It's such a pleasure and honor to be with you today. Just a little bit about myself. I work with Dr. Jennifer and I love having that Black girl magic, but I have a doctorate degree in business administration and entrepreneurship. And I currently have my own business, Abrons Next Level Coaching, with my husband. And recently, I have been taking care of my sister, and we're going to talk about that today. So I'm adding caregiver uh, to my credentials as well. So I'm happy to be here.
Love that, Dr. Irene. You are such an amazing businesswoman. And where can people find out more about your business if they want to get in contact with you?
Absolutely. They can go to my website, abronsnextlevelcoaching.com. I'm on there. They can also go to my Instagram page, which is the same, Abrons Next Level Coaching. And so they can follow me. They can reach out through my website, or they can reach me directly on Instagram at Dr. Irene _Abrons. And I'll be happy to reach out to them.
Now, what type of business coaching do you do?
So my husband and I, we do the whole gamut of business. So we split it up in two sections. So I do business startups when it comes to helping you start your business, legalizing your business, helping you go through which legal structure you should do. I help you with marketing strategies, social media strategies to really help you get your business out there, as well as growth plans. So we do a lot of plans to help businesses that have hit their glass ceiling, help them come up with a strategic plan to go to the next level. My husband does all of the financial and tax parts of it. So he helps people with their accounting. He teaches QuickBooks. He helps businesses understand like where they break even. So we'll do a break even analysis. How much money do they have to make to be profitable? And then making sure that businesses file their taxes. We don't want you to end up in trouble with the IRS. If you have a business, you should be able to file taxes. So he's all things finance, and he also teaches business owners how to keep their books as well.
That is amazing. I'm super excited to be able to share that information with my listeners because who doesn't need somebody like that in their back pocket if they're an
Absolutely.
entrepreneur? So awesome. So today we are going to dive into a very special case, and it's perfect that you are our special guest today because the case is near and dear to your heart because unfortunately your sister experienced this firsthand. So
Hmm.
I wanted to have you on the show so that you could share your sister's story. It was kind of like the classic, not love story, not the classic love story, but the classic story of man meets woman kind of thing. And man gets the wrong idea and man takes it too far. So I love to talk to my listeners and give them knowledge, give them advice if I can, so that they know that these things happen. If it has happened to them, that they're not alone. And just in case it happens to them, that these are some things that they can possibly do so that they can try to get out of the situation and report the situation and not find themselves in such a vulnerable position. So, Dr. Irene, can you take me and the listeners back to the beginning for your sister? Where did she meet this man?
Well, it's really a cautionary tale of being careful of who you call friend as well,
Okay.
because my sister actually met this man through a friend. So a friend of hers was saying, "Oh, I want to introduce you to a guy." And so it just angers me. And I'll talk about it a little bit later because during the court case, of course, they were subpoenaing this girl, and she was like calling my sister because she felt so bad and she didn't want to go to court. And I'm like, no, you have to testify. But
Absolutely.
it's really a cautionary tale about who's in your circle, who's around you. So my sister was introduced to this man through another person. They went on two group dates, I'll say group dates,
Okay.
because it was like more than her and him. It was a bunch of other people. The young lady that introduced her to him, they had went out, and then the other dates in air quotes would be they were all at a party together, like a social, and they were both there. And then the last time they actually saw each other, my sister was with him and his sister, and they went out to eat. So she had never really been with him one on one.
And
And
that's normal.
yeah,
We as women, if you're single, not always, but sometimes, if you're single, you have a friend, you have a coworker, you have a church member saying, "Hey, I have a son. I want to fix you up with my son. Hey, I have a friend. I have a coworker. I want to fix you up with my coworker." Those things are normal. So what you're describing is something that happens every day, happens to us in our everyday lives. So with you describing a cautionary tale, I definitely think that this is something that is relevant today and can happen to anybody.
yes.
So they go out on these dates, group dates, if you will. What happens next?
So my sister said that in these settings, like she observed him and she realized that he really just wasn't a person that she thought he was. And she told him, I don't think this is gonna work. I really don't want to see you anymore. And I think what really kind of made her decide that was his sister had sent her a text and
Okay.
asked her if she could give him some money. And that made her like that was a big, huge red flag. And she was like, I no, no.
Right.
That was a
Right.
red flag. So she just said, no, we shouldn't see each other anymore. And they, she just kind of stopped talking to him. And
Yeah.
so the night of the incident that happened to her, he had came to her house and she thought it was weird.
Mhm.
And really, honestly, against her better judgment, she left.
Okay. Okay. So just right there, with your sister going out on dates with him, observing him, and just having in the back of her mind that, hey, I don't really think this is going to go anywhere. Those things, again, are normal. That's
Mhm.
what dates are for. You're getting to know somebody, you're getting to spend time with them, you're getting to decide if you want this person in your space. Because guess what? It is your space. You get to
Exactly.
decide who is allowed in your space, who is not allowed in your space. So your sister was doing things the right way. She didn't go on one-on-one dates with him and said, we're alone, and, put herself in a vulnerable position. What she did was go on group dates and say, hey, this is not for me. And then
Yes.
another red flag popped up, and then his sister is saying, hey, can you loan him some money? And she's like, now that's not a stop. That's not a red flag. That's a stop sign. So I applaud your sister for that in itself. So now, let's say some days later or whatever have you, he comes to her door. He finds out where she lives, comes to her door. Because she is familiar with him, she lets him in. What happens next?
So she said once she let him in, she said she looked out and saw there was someone else in the car with him, but she couldn't get a good look at who it was, but she saw it was
Okay.
another person. She said she then felt really uneasy and she said she knows it was God. Something just said, sit down. So she immediately sat down and said, I'm on my period. Like those were her first words to him. He looked crazy. And so let me say, my sister was the only victim that he did not rape. He raped everyone else. She was the only victim that he didn't rape.
So he's a serial rapist.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. And then he started asking her for money. I know you have money. And so, my sister used to work in the medical industry, as an MRI tech and been a single woman. She had her own place. So she wasn't doing, bad for herself. She was doing okay. And so he was just like, you
She was
know,
providing for herself as we as adults are supposed to do,
we're
is
supposed
what
to
it
do.
sounds like what she was doing. Okay.
And she said, I don't have any money. He goes, I know you do. I know you have money. I know you have money. And he started going through her place, looking for money. And
Okay.
so she said he then took out a gun.
What?
He, yeah, he hit her, he basically pistol whipped her, like hit her across her head, knocked her down. She
Okay.
started to cry and was trying to get away from him.
Of course.
So she was trying to run out through her garage, through the kitchen. And so when she got to the kitchen, they were both in the kitchen. They started tussling around, and he saw a knife on her counter. And
No way.
he was trying to slice her throat.
Okay.
But my sister is short. She's probably 4'10".
Okay.
So she kind of ducked. And so when she did that, he just sliced a little right here.
Of her chin.
And yeah, just a little bit of her chin. And she was able to get away, hit the garage door open,
Oh,
and run through the garage to her neighbor's house.
wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, he then opened her car door. He went through the garage, opened the car door, and stole her driver's license and her Bank of America credit card. And he left.
Okay. So now he's brutally attacked her.
Yes.
He got some things that he was after. He was trying to rob her, and she is able to get away by the grace of God. And she calls the police through her
Yes.
neighbor. What happens next?
So the police comes and they said my sister was visibly shaken up. They kept having to ask her the same questions over and over because she was just so distraught.
Yeah, she's
And
traumatized at this point, if nothing else.
yeah, she's traumatized. And so they try to convince her to go to the hospital to get checked out. At the time she was fine. They checked her out. They kind of
So she
uh
did go to the hospital.
yeah, they kind
Okay.
of patched her up. This side of her face was kind of like swollen.
So one side of her face is swollen. One side, the chin is sliced. Okay.
Yeah. And then of course, they took a police report, took her
Yeah.
testimony, and maybe about a week later, he was
Okay.
arrested.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
That's good
but
that they were able to find him.
oh well, they had to find him only because he had attacked someone else, and that's how they found him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how they found.
So not only was he a serial rapist, he continued to be um a menace, if you
Yes,
will, to society after attacking your sister.
that's what the judge called him, a menace to society, literally his exact words. But
Look at that. And
so
I didn't even know that part.
he went to he saw some random woman
Okay.
and followed her to her apartment
No
and
way.
waited for her husband to leave,
No.
then went in and brutally raped her. But
Oh
what
my
he didn't
gosh.
know was she had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old in the house. They hid under the bed. The 4-year-old took her cell phone and called his dad and said, "Dad, someone's hurting mom." And the husband turned around and came home. And that's how the police was able to catch him, because he ended up barricading himself in this lady's apartment.
With
And
her or her
with her,
kids?
no, 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 with her. I think after a while he let her and the kids go after some hours, and he was in there, but that's ultimately how he got caught.
Wow. That smart 4-year-old. Look
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah. Hid under the bed and called the dad.
That's amazing.
Mm.
That right there is amazing. So he's caught. I'm sure he's brought to justice and he has a trial. What happens then?
So we have to go to the preliminary hearing, and this is the first time that now I'm introduced into the story, because ultimately my sister started having strokes, and the last stroke that she had rendered her speechless, where she wasn't
Oh
able
my
to speak.
gosh.
And so thank God she's getting her speech back.
But this
But
is years later, right?
right, well, this happened in 2020. He
Right. That's what
went.
I'm saying. She's getting her speech back
Yes, yes,
years later.
years later. So 2021 was the preliminary hearing. And so now I have to testify about why my sister has to type instead of speak, because she's not able to. And during the
Because of
preliminary
what he
hearing,
did to her.
exactly, it was a lot of it was a effect of that.
Hmm.
And so we're in court and we go through the testimony and the cross examination. I know, Dr. Jennifer, that the lawyers have to do their job,
Yes,
but
they
I'm
do.
looking at this attorney like, you hear all of this stuff. Like, how can you defend this monster? And his defense was, "Oh, but weren't you his girlfriend?" And my sister kept typing, "No, no, I just met him through someone." And he was like, oh, she wanted me. He was telling the lawyer, oh, she wanted me. She was one of my BITCHs. Like, she was just one of them. And my sister was like, no, it was not that way at all. And
But for the sake of this conversation, let's say that your sister was his girlfriend. Is it okay to pistol whip your girlfriend
no, right.
and rob her? Is that acceptable?
That is
Is that
not it.
what we do to our girlfriends?
Someone that you are trying to date and be with. No,
Exactly. Is that okay? Because he's using that as his defense. So
exactly.
I'm wondering, is that allowed? Is that what we do?
I guess
We
in his
it's
mind.
right. So
But what
because you
happened to
agree,
the other 20 victims? Like, he had other victims. What about
right. So all of them wanted to be raped, all of them wanted to be abused and brutally attacked, and they agreed to it because they said they wanted to be your girlfriend allegedly. That makes it okay, and you should not have to answer for what you did. Is that the logic we're trying to
that was
understand
his
here?
logic. Yeah, that
Okay.
I was just floored at the defense attorney.
That's why I'm just like, so that I understand. If you have a girlfriend in this person's eyes, if you like them, if you want to be with them on a long term basis, just brutally attack them allegedly.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because that's okay. Because that's what he was saying on the stand.
He was saying on the stand.
Okay, go ahead.
So after we had the preliminary hearing, we had to go back. They set a trial date because they kept saying, "Oh, it might not go to trial. They might just sentence him." And I think that's what the prosecutors wanted.
Mm,
They wanted them just to go to. They didn't want it to go to trial. They didn't think it would go to trial,
yeah.
but it went to trial. We went
Oh my
back.
word.
This was in 2022. This was September 2022. We went to trial, and my sister had to testify again. You
Years
know,
later.
yeah. And
So
now
she's
she's starting
still
to get some of her
reliving this
right,
trauma.
reliving it. And this
Yeah.
time she had to identify the knife that was used, her apartment, like the different pictures, and all the victims. They had all the victims hanging up in the courtroom. And it was traumatizing for me and my family to see, and other families that was there that day.
Hmm.
We were all consoling each other because it was a lot to listen to deal with. And, just me being grateful that my sister he didn't rape her, because hearing these other women talk about how he raped them, it just broke me, even though he didn't rape my sister, how he did her just broke me. And
Yes.
so,
Because you
you
love her. You don't want
know,
any harm to come to her.
no, no, it was pretty bad. So once the trial was over, um, they kept keeping us abreast of when they were gonna make a decision on
Right.
guilty, and then that we got the decision that it was guilty, and
Thank
then they
God.
sentenced him at another date. And because they said we didn't have to come back because all of this happened in Wichita, Kansas, they said we didn't have to come back. They zoomed us into when the judge, they read the verdict, and then the judge gave the sentencing. We
Nice.
sat on Zoom.
So
Yeah.
you didn't have to keep going back and forth after that.
Right, right.
So, how is your sister today, considering everything that she has been through initially, considering her rehabilitation, and then thinking about her now? How is she today?
She's actually doing really good. It's a blessing to see her. She goes to a rehabilitation about 3 times a week.
Okay.
And when we applied for her to go to this program, the lady said she couldn't even tell anything was wrong with her. And that was just by the
Mm,
grace of God. Really, if you're around her, you think she's fine. It's just when you hear her speak, you can tell, like, she speaks like a 5-year-old. So
okay.
like something's not right. But she's in intensive speech therapy. Her neurologist expects her speech to totally return back. It just takes time for the brain to recover in the area of where she lost speech, because really she didn't lose the ability to speak. She lost movement of her tongue.
Oh
And
my
so where
gosh.
she had the speech at is where your tongue moves. So it's hard for her to eat. For a while, she choked. We had to watch her eat. She had a liquid diet, then they moved her up. So her I shouldn't say her speech was lost, because her speech wasn't lost. Her ability to use her tongue was lost.
Okay.
And that's coming back slowly. She slowly can feel it. She slowly can move her tongue side to side, up and down, where before she couldn't even do any of that.
So
And so
she's truly a miracle in this
it really is,
aspect. Yeah.
because she was having many strokes and no one knew it. And it wasn't until we took her to the hospital
Hmm.
and they were like, wait a minute, no, she's having strokes. She's set to have these strokes continually. She has to have
Oh my
surgery on her
gosh.
brain. So she had brain surgery on both sides of her brain.
Wow.
Yeah, to heal her from having these strokes. And she's healed. And now
Wow.
we're just dealing with the effects of, what happened, but she's healed. And we believe that, her speech and everything is going to be restored.
I believe that too because she sounds like she's working really hard at it and she has really
Mhm.
good providers who are
Mhm.
invested in her getting better every day.
Yes, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love that. Now, you started out by saying that this was a cautionary tale. Anytime we cover a case on Criminal Justice Corner, I always ask my guests, what do you think is a good takeaway from this story? Because we have several listeners, they've come from all walks of life, they come from all over the world. What do you think would be something good for them to take away from this situation, your sister's story, so that if they have this same situation, a loved one has this same situation, that they can take from it to try and improve their situation, learn from the situation, something like that.
I would say several things. Like, for one, like, watch your friendship circle.
Okay.
Watch the people around you. Do they really mean you good? And now the young lady that introduced my sister to the man, like, she's very apologetic now. But in me talking to her, because she is my baby sister, so I'm very protective. So me talking to her, I got down to, why did you introduce my sister to her? Like, did you know he was violent? And she was like, well, I heard stuff about him, but yet you chose to introduce her. So that really upset me a lot. And
Mhm.
so cautionary tale is, watch your friendships, watch those people around you. Not that I want to say people aren't on people's levels, but in meeting
Absolutely.
her and in talking to her, I told my sister, this girl was never on your level. How you even allowed her to be in your friend group is beyond me. So that's one. And I think two, being in you got to follow your first heart. I wish my sister would have never opened that door. I just
Yeah.
wish she would have never opened that door. She didn't
Yeah.
know him well enough to open
Let
the
them
door.
in.
I
Yeah.
just, and I think that if you see characteristics of a guy that you don't like, don't let him in your house. Cut off all communication. Don't talk to him. Nothing good can come out of it. And then finally, I would say, having your family and your friends to support you. I'm an
Yeah.
advocate. Let me tell you about the healthcare system. They don't want to help us.
I agree with that. I've seen
They
it
don't.
many times.
Dr. Jennifer, I have had to go toe to toe with so many therapists, remove her out of therapy that wasn't, helpful, find a network of people that have helped her. And just being an advocate and empowering her, you can't give up on your loved ones. And now she's in the best care, but getting to this point was hard. I had to
Wow.
fight for her, for
Wow.
her to get the proper health care, because her speech therapist in the beginning wasn't listening to me and was giving her traditional speech therapy. And I knew it wasn't right.
Right.
And I
Right.
went back to the neurologist and I did swallow tests. We went to ear, nose, and throat. I said, her issue is not that she does not know how to speak. The issue is the movement of her tongue. And finally, I got someone to listen to me, and she's in the right type therapy. And
Isn't
now
it something?
they're
Is
working on her getting her tongue stronger. They're working on what can actually help her.
okay.
Now that she's getting the right type of care, we're seeing improvement in her speech. And so I think, and then of course, the brain was damaged in other areas, like some
Right.
critical thinking, things like that. But we work with her. I have to brag on you. You have a book that we've been able to,
That
a
is
stroke
so true. My book, The
that
Help Stroke Victims,
it helps. It
available
helps.
on
Absolutely.
Amazon. Yep.
Go to
Absolutely.
Amazon and get this book. I'm telling you,
Yes.
Dr. Jennifer is amazing. And you go through her book, and that helps a lot. So we're gonna get more books from your site because we noticed like the reading helps, the stroke workbook that helps. And so that's what I have to say, too. If your family is victim, oh yeah, and they have a victims fund. Every state should have one. Fight for that victims fund. The state of Kansas paid all of my sister's bills.
Wow.
She was awarded money from the state of Kansas because she
I
was
did
a
not
victim.
know that.
Yes. And so, but I had to fight for that. And so I did. I didn't get a lawyer. I'm intelligent enough. I just did all the research, and just having someone that's an advocate for you, because you know what? They expected me to leave her in Kansas and they were going to transfer her to an adult nursing. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm moving my sister with me to Chicago, and all the resources that I had in Kansas, I got those same resources for her in the state of Illinois.
That
And I
is
just,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, that is huge. I'm glad that she had you to advocate for her because a lot of people do not have anyone to advocate for them.
they don't. They just put them in
So
a
that's
home
truly a
for,
blessing.
yeah.
That is truly a blessing. And that stroke recovery book is available on Amazon. And it's called Stroke Recovery Activity Book, Interactive Activities and Stimulating Puzzles to Boost Brain Function, Motor Skills, Cognitive and Physical Healing. And the author is Glamour Girl. So if you are interested in that stroke recovery book, it is available on Amazon. Please go get it today. Leave a review. Let us know how you like it. I, Dr. Irene can tell you her sister enjoys the book, so I would think everyone else would enjoy the book as well. And then, Dr. Irene, I want to thank you for being my special guest today. This story of perseverance from your sister is truly impactful. It is truly encouraging for other people because some people, they go through the same situation and they don't have the same outcome. Some people go through this situation and they revert backwards to, I can't do it. Life is against me. I'm not going to make it, that type of thing. But your sister is a living testimony that you can make it with the right loved ones, with the right care, with the right, things in place, you can get through this.
You can. You can.
I
Yes.
think that is truly amazing.
You have to fight for your loved ones, yourself. You have to fight, and you can't take no for an answer. I utilize the court system, all their resources, and everybody I met, I asked for different resources, and I just never took no for an answer because I wanted my sister to be, who God has called her to be. I wanted her to be who she was destined to be. And this was just, I keep saying, this was just a little bump in the road. You know, we're
And we
going to get
see that
through it.
because
And we
she's
see it.
thriving. We
She's
see
thriving.
that. She
Yes.
is doing that thing. We know this to be the truth. So I love that for her.
Yes.
And I want to let everybody know that now Criminal Justice Corner is available on a live podcast network. You can find us there. So I'm sure if you love this content that I have here on Criminal Justice Corner, you'll love the other similar content on a live podcast network, the app. Plus, you can support this podcast and enjoy ad-free listening to nearly 100 other Black hosted podcasts. So I'm truly excited to be available on the live podcast network now. That is something that I didn't even expect, but it is something that is truly good for Criminal Justice Corner. So if you're not subscribed to Criminal Justice Corner on YouTube or Spotify, please go subscribe to us on a live podcast network. And of course, as always, I'll see you on the next episode of Criminal Justice Corner. Thank you.